Well, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to those of you out east. I'm up here in bright, sunny North Dakota. We're having some nice weather today. It's supposed to get over 30 degrees again, and I'm excited about it. I'll take my dog for a walk, and I started a year ago, January 3rd of 2017. I started on my mission to lose this extra weight that I put on after my motorcycle wreck. 10 years ago, or 11 years ago now, it was 2007, so 11 years ago, I was involved in a motorcycle wreck. Somebody ran a stop sign and hit me at 65 miles an hour is what they estimate he was going when he hit me. T-boned me. I was going about 25. I was riding a big old road glide Harley, and he hit so hard that threw me for about 200 feet through the bike and me, and nearly ripped my right leg off. My head cracked on the ground. I got a crack in my skull, and I broke my wrist, and a few other things that happened just internally, and I ended up in the hospital. They airlifted me to the nearest level 1 trauma center, and I was in a coma for 2 days. I spent 2 months in that hospital. They wanted to amputate my leg. They said that if I didn't get it amputated, that I'd probably never walk again. I'd probably still lose the leg due to an infection, because they just assumed that I would get some sort of infection. And so I try and tell people that with the power of the products that we're taking, I was able to stave off getting any kind of an infection, and I decided not to have my leg amputated. And really, I look at it now, and what a wise decision I made. But boy, I tell you what, for the first 2 years, I really thought about it a couple times. I thought, man, maybe I should go back and have it done. I was in a lot of pain. I was in a wheelchair. My metabolism was going down. I didn't sleep, and I went into depression, and it's hard for me to admit that, I think a lot of us, especially guys, we have a hard time admitting that we're depressed. But I look back at it now, and yeah, I was there. I was there. And I talk about this when I bring up the weight loss issue, because when the accident happened, I was, right around 200 pounds. I'm not a small guy. And I think my normal body weight should be right around that 190, 200 pounds, somewhere in there, based on the charts. I've got a big frame. That's why I survived a motorcycle accident like that, and my bones are pretty solid. Anyhow, but after the accident, with everything that was going on, the depression, the lack of mobility, and all of that, I put on 80 pounds. I put on 80 pounds, and that was just in a matter of a couple of years. And you think about that. Most people don't do that. Most people don't all of a sudden wake up one day and they go, holy crap, I'm almost 30% heavier in a 2-year period of time. Most people, it gradually creeps on. Like you might put a couple pounds on over the holidays, and then you take, a few weeks and you take it back off. And that's what I used to see my ex-wife doing. And she'd put a couple on, she'd take a couple off. And it was easy. And I thought, wow, that'd be nice to be able to do that. And but a lot of times what ends up happening is that people will put a pound on, and they'll put a pound on this year. And, you don't really think much about it. And then next year, you put another pound on. And if you do that over a period of a few years, say over a 20-year period of time, I mean, that's 20 pounds. That's 20 pounds. And you look at it and you go, okay, well, what caused it? Well, I mean, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. You can eat, maybe a slice of bread more per day in calories, than what you're burning, and that packs the weight on. And then you start looking at, our environment, our current environment in our country, and I think all over the world. We live in a stressful time. we live in a stressful time. I mean, things are interesting. We were just before the call, Linda and I were just discussing some of the interesting things that are happening in the world, and a lot of it causes stress. And I think sometimes the fear of the unknown, the fear of stress, causes problems. And I was talking to a friend of mine, a doctor, a very successful doctor out of Florida, a couple weeks ago, before the holidays, and we were talking about weight loss, and he says to me, he said, with all this stress and with all the different things going on in our lives, how does that affect weight, and how does that affect health? So when you're stressed, stress is really it's a threat. It's a threat to your existence. So what are you going to do? I mean, you've got two choices. You're either going to fight, put up your fists and let's get to it, or you're going to run and you're going to hide. And that's the effect of adrenaline from the adrenal gland. But what happens is that when adrenaline is forced out of the adrenal glands, what it does is it pushes the blood out and it causes high blood pressure. It causes high blood pressure, and so there's some effects to high blood pressure, and we can go through that. But another hormone is called noradrenaline or norepinephrine, and what this one does is it takes all that blood and it pushes it out to the skeletal muscle. And hang on one second here. Somebody's trying to dial in, and it pushes all that blood out to the skeletal muscle, so now you don't have the normal blood flow to your organs on the inside, and then it affects, because it's affecting the adrenal glands, the cortisone goes up, and the cortisol gets all messed up and out of shape. Remember, I said that I didn't sleep for nearly 2 years. If you paid attention to what I post on Facebook after my accident, I didn't sleep for nearly 2 years, maybe 3 years. And, I mean, if I was just totally exhausted, where the life was just sucked out of me, maybe I'd get a night of sleep, but it wasn't good sleep. And so then my circadian rhythm gets all messed up. And people will tell me all the time, they'll say, hey, Doc, I find that I wake up at certain times of the day, and I just say to them, I say, oh, yeah? I said, is it around 3 o'clock, maybe 2 o'clock, maybe 4 o'clock, but somewhere around that 3 o'clock hour, and then is it again somewhere around 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and they look at me kind of stunned, and how do I know that? And I say, well, because that's the circadian rhythm. What happens is that you have these normal sleep and wake cycles during the day. I ask people, do you find that you have kind of a lull around 11 o'clock in the morning, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning? Do you have another, lull about 3 o'clock in the afternoon? And so these are like spikes and dips in your hormones, and it's your body's way of being able to keep you alert to your environment, because we're animals, and being alert is very important. If you're a zebra out in the wild, and you're always half awake, waiting for the lion to come pouncing out of the jungle and eat you, your circadian rhythm is going to wake you up during the middle of the night. It's going to keep you half awake, one eye open type of a thing, and so that messes with you, and that can cause some metabolism problems. And then on top of it, cortisol affects the pancreas, and that messes up the insulin levels, and all of a sudden, your insulin is messed up, and you're not burning the calories because your body thinks, oh no, you're going through a time of stress. Maybe you're going to hibernate for a while like a big old bear, and you need to build that body fat on, or maybe a great famine is coming, and your body kind of picks up on that. And animals do that. They can sense things because of changes in nature, and so they eat a little bit differently, and they store a little bit of fat. Like I watch the squirrels out in my yard, and you know, come fall, they're packing away more food, they're getting fatter, and you see animals doing that. Well, we do that too, but what if that stress never goes away? What if internally your body thinks you're continuing to have that stress? And so, you know, so the adrenal glands are really, really important. And, you know, they say that probably 50% of Americans are stressed out, where we should be, you know, and the drug companies, of course, say that we should be on antidepressants, and I don't know, there's a lot of people who are, and it really doesn't help anything, because it messes up those natural hormones, and it doesn't really fix them. It just messes them up. It creates stress within the brain, and pretty soon the brain figures it out, and then they have to switch, and that's why you see people where they go from one antidepressant to the next, to the next, to the next, and pretty soon they don't have a strong enough antidepressant, and the doctors just give up on them and say, well, we've exhausted everything that we can, and that's bad. That's bad. So we need to look at things like that, and then of course, you know, the food that we eat. When we look at the different foods that we eat, so loaded up with processed sugar, and it's not really sugar, it's a sweetener. It's called high fructose corn syrup, and that causes problems. You know, my mom was having some issues with gout a couple years ago, and I was trying to find, you know, some things, and of course, you know, we always learned that gout was caused by, you know, the nitrates and things like that, processed meats like sausage and ham and pork and things like that. And so I cut her back on those sorts of things, on the meats, and it didn't seem to change anything. She just didn't seem to get any better. I mean, she went to more of a vegan, vegetarian type of a diet, and just the gout just continued to get worse. And so I was looking it up one day, and I found out that high fructose corn syrup can trigger gout. I won't get into all that. That's another discussion. But it messes with things. It messes with your body, and causes problems. And so we start looking at things like that. And depression. What does depression do? I mean, without even going on antidepressants, what does depression do? Well, depression causes problems with serotonin, and serotonin is kind of that master regulator. It's the hormone of master regulator, and so it can cause problems as well. And if you're old enough, and that you probably remember a drug called fen-phen. And what fen-phen was a combination of a couple of different antidepressants, and they found that they could mess around with your serotonin levels, and they could make it so you could lose weight. It was really effective, so effective that it caused people to have heart disease. And so they took that off the market. They banned it, so, you know, but we know that you want to get your serotonin levels under control, but you can't just work on serotonin. What they found is you have to work with all the other catecholamines at the same time, which, again, what is a catecholamine? Well, that's your adrenaline and your noradrenaline and your dopamine and different things like that. So we start talking about some of that. And really, so last year when I decided I was going to get serious about the weight loss, in that 12-week period of time, I lost 40 pounds. And I'm happy to say that here it is, a new year. I kept it off. I lost it in that 12-week period of time. And then over the summer, I just decided I'm just going to plateau. I'm going to hang out where I was and make sure that I could stay there. And then in the fall, I was thinking that I was going to go back on it, but I just never got the motivation going. And I do again now. I've got the motivation to go, and I've got my goals set, and I'm asking myself every single day, what can I do today to help myself reach my goal? And that's really what you want to think about. You don't want to just hammer yourself and hit yourself in the head when you make a mistake, but you want to be thinking to yourself all the time, what can I do to help myself reach that goal? And what's going to happen is your brain's going to try and come up with solutions. That's what we do, is that we try and come up with solutions to problems. And right now, I mean, it's about 75% of the adult population in the United States is overweight. And they say about 30 to 40% of the population is what we consider to be obese. And really, around the world, obesity has doubled just between the years of 1980 and the year 2010. So you think about it, in that 30-year period of time, the obesity has doubled in the world. So we can't just say it's the standard American diet. There's something else going on, and you start looking at this, the risk of all these diseases starts to go up. We've always heard that people have problems with heart disease because of weight, but what about other diseases like cancer, right? And there's certain hormones that are found within fat cells that increase your risk of cancer. So what they say is for every 33 pounds, you increase your risk of early death by 30%. 30%. Wow. And so this battle that we face isn't as simple as just saying, hey, I'm gonna eat a little better today. It's not just that. You can't just go in the kitchen and say, I'm going to make a better choice for lunch. Andrea, what do you think of that?
I agree with everything you're saying, and I also wonder how toxins play into that, our struggle with weight loss. When you're talking about the effects of hormones on the body, and we already know that the cheap plastics and stuff release kind of a fake estrogen in the system, and it's causing hormonal disruptions for people. Do you have anything that you could share about that?
You bet. Well, it was I think it was 2009. About 9 years ago, that I remember I was listening to a biochemist talk about toxicity, and he was saying at that time that studies had come out, and I don't want to make a quote where they came out or anything like that. I'll just tell you the study if you want to go look it up. I mean, you can probably do some kind of a search online and you can find it. But they said that what happens is that most toxins are fat soluble, which means that they dissolve into fat. So you take lead, mercury, arsenic. You take the pesticides that we're exposed to, the exogenous estrogens like Andrea was just talking about, and they get deposited into the fat cells. And what happens is that I'm going to go eat different, and I think I'm going to lose all this weight just by changing what I eat. And what ends up happening is that I don't lose, I lose that initial weight, because it seems like everybody can lose that initial 10, 20 pounds, but then what happens after that is that your body hangs on to it. Well, why would your body hang on to fat cells if your brain, if your innate intelligence knows that it's not healthy for you? And the answer to that is that if you've got a barrel of fat, of oil, and it's full of mercury, for example, you're not just going to go take and tip that barrel over and say, well, there I go. I got rid of that barrel of oil, and with all the mercury in it, I mean, and what's going to happen is you're going to make the environment toxic. And I'm trying to say it in a way that people can get an analogy. They can picture this in your head, right? I mean, you just wouldn't do that. Nobody would do that. But in your body, you think that you're going to go bust up these fat cells that are loaded with lead, mercury, pesticides, estrogens, things like that, and you're going to burn the fat. Well, Andrea, what happens to all of the toxic material? It gets re-released back into your body, but it's not just re-released, not in the form that it was that you were exposed to it the first time. it's re-released in a more toxic form because your body concentrated it when it put it in that barrel. It concentrated it to put it away in a safe place, and the fat cells were the safe place to put it in. So the system says, well, we're not going to burn that fat cell because we don't want to re-expose him or her to that toxin again. And so it hangs on to it really, really tightly. So does that make sense? Does that kind of answer your question? I apologize, I got diarrhea of the mouth there.
Yeah, that does make sense. And then it also brings, just thinking through this in common sense, it would seem like our product from Sizzle called Body Shield would be an important product to be using as you're trying to do weight loss to help remove toxins. What do you think about that?
Exactly, right? Because what you're doing now is you're taking and think of it like this. Again, I'm trying to use analogies that you can picture. If I go out for a walk with Chewy, with my dog, and I take him out for a walk today, if I don't put a leash on him, he's going to be running in the neighbor's yard. He's going to be, going and marking, all the spots wherever there's somebody has a dog. And, I have neighbors, a lot of dogs around the area. So he's going to be running in and out of all these neighborhoods and leaving his mark there, right? And so I got to put a leash on him. And I control my dog by putting a leash on him. Well, if you're trying to pull the toxins out of your body in a way while you're doing the weight loss, what the Body Shield is the Body Shield is that dog leash. It hangs onto the toxins and it leads them out of the body, and that's what that product does. And it really works, and I like that. And then we can add the Super Detox, and I believe only after that. I think that you have to add the Body Shield first, then the Super Detox, because what the Super Detox then is, it works like it bumps up the function of the liver, it bumps up the function of the detoxing part of the digestive system, and so now that you put the dog on the leash, now you can take him around for the walk, and that's what those two products do.
That sounds great. Earlier in your conversation, you mentioned supporting the adrenal glands. Can you speak to about any product that we have that would do that? It seems to be kind of an epidemic that people are having failure in their adrenal glands. Maybe you could address what that is exactly, and how would that play into the weight loss conversation we're having?
Well, I think that, Andrea, that's a great question, and a lot of people ask me that. And it's not just as easy as somebody saying, oh, here, take this adrenal gland support. I've had doctors tell me that, or you'll go online, and you'll Google adrenal gland support, and you'll find products that do that. And the thing about it is that it's not that easy. The adrenal glands are your gland, your organ that's involved with stress or threat, right? And so you have to look at what's really causing the threat, what's really causing the stress, and so a lot of people, they think of stress and they go, oh yeah, my spouse, that's my stress. I'll just get rid of him or her, and that'll remove the stress. Well, that's one kind of stress. That's emotional stress, right? Not having enough money, that's another kind of stress, but that's all emotional stress, and you could just think of all the things that cause emotional stress. And then we look at chemical stress, like bring up the toxins again. Toxins cause stress, chemical stress on the body, and a lot of times people say, well, what really is a toxin? Well, what a toxin is that it's something that interferes with your body's normal processes. It interferes with it and causes a problem. It doesn't necessarily poison you. It's not gonna necessarily kill you like a poison will, but it's gonna mess up some of the things that are going on, and that causes chemical stress. And then physical stress, of course, like my motorcycle wreck. My leg was smashed into a gazillion pieces, and they had to put me back together like Humpty Dumpty. And so you have physical stress. Well, your brain, the part of your brain called the thalamus, and your adrenal gland, they work together. There's kind of an axis there that they work together like a teeter-totter, and so your brain and your adrenal glands, they don't distinguish what kind of stress it is. So like for me, where I was under a lot of physical stress, and then at the same time, they had me on the different kinds of medications. So I was on, some chemical stress at the same time, and so then my adrenal glands are getting messed up. So you can't just take something that addresses, adrenal glands. You got to figure out what's causing the stress and that. So there's a number of products, in answer to your question, there's a number of products that I really find are great for helping with the adrenal glands. And I know this is kind of an off use of what the product was originally designed for, but you take a look at the Avenger. The Avenger was originally designed to help support the systems for people that had chronic immune challenges, like things like Lyme disease. But I found that chaga and some of the other ingredients in there, they really help out with balancing out some of the hormones that come from the adrenal gland. Just the coffee and the green tea that we have, the Sencha green tea, they really help out too. The green tea is not only does it have chaga, but it's got the EGCG, which is extract from green tea that helps out with stress and that. The other thing is that we take a look at fucoidan. Fucoidan gets rid of inflammation. It helps with inflammation. We've got the SpectraMax, and the SpectraMax helps out with giving your body all the trace minerals. And according to Harvard medical study, they said that I believe it was 99% of people are missing key essential minerals in their diet, and most vitamins don't provide that. They say a multi-mineral and multivitamin. Yeah, but take a look at how many minerals they actually have. And the best one I found had 25 minerals in it, and you need a lot more than that. You need 3 times that amount of essential trace minerals. And essential means you need them, right? And trace means you don't need a lot of them. And that's what we have with the SpectraMax. And people say, yeah, well, I can get it from food. Well, you can, but again, a Harvard study said that 97% of people don't. And so if you're a gambling person, you're not going to take that risk. I mean, you're going to say, well, I'm part of the 97%. I'm not part of the 3%. Even somebody like myself that I know a little bit more about this nutrition than the average guy, I still take supplements, and I do that because I'm not going to gamble with my health. I mean, I'm 55 years old. I want to live to be 110, and why would I risk it? So the SpectraMax is a great product for the adrenal glands as well, and I think the Brain Vitality, because it's got the magnesium, it's got a few other things that help out with that, and the curcumin in there is a great ingredient for helping out with not only the brain but helping out with that. And Super Omega, as soon as we get that back in stock here this week or next week, what a great product for getting good oils into your body, the good fish oils, and it also has the CoQ10. So many people are on statin drugs these days, and statin drugs interfere with the metabolism of CoQ10, and so that's why Tom added it to the fish oil, because he knew that people were having problems with that, and so that helps out, just so many things like that we can take, and we can balance it out. The 4Restore helps because it helps balance out some of the hormones like testosterone, and then of course we look at the Scissoline, and the Scissoline being a protein that your body can actually use, and there's so much science that I've read in the last year on protein diets being so healthy because of that. So did I throw too much at you, Andrea?
No, I love to hear about it and learn about it. I do remember that story of you sharing with us that you and Tom were sitting around a campfire and you asked him, out of the Triangle of Life products, which one would he absolutely not want to live without? And his answer was Spectramax. When we, hear over and over in health news that the root of all disease is lack of minerals, that would be probably the reason, right?
That would be the exact reason. Yeah, I mean, and it's such a powerful product, and we've got the fulvic acid, not folic acid, fulvic, Fulvic, fulvic acid. And what that is that's a type of a acid that dissolves rocks. It dissolves minerals, so your body can actually absorb them. When you look outside, like I'm looking out at my apple tree here this winter, there's roots that go down in the ground, and you wonder, how do you take like an apple seed, throw it in the ground, and all of a sudden you got this big, beautiful apple tree producing all sorts of apples on it. And it's because the roots of the tree give off fulvic acid, and it dissolves the minerals in the soil, and it allows the tree to absorb the minerals from the ground. And so when you hear people saying, "Oh, I'm already taking this mineral or that mineral, whatever," well, I look at it, I go, well, it doesn't have fulvic acid, right? And that's one of the key things that we have with ours, so you can explain to people. And so when Tom and I were sitting around talking about that, yeah, it was. I mean, I asked him, I said, if you had $50 and you could only buy one product, what would it be? And his answer, right off the top of his head, was the Spectramax. Now, since the formulation of the age pill, last July, that might have changed, but I might still say that Spectramax might be on that top of that list, and that, but yeah, it's up there. It's up there yet.